In this video, I'm going to reveal the hidden forces at play in Donald Trump's assassination attempt. Now, I'm going to do that by looking at the astrology and by presenting to you the evidence of astrological factors that speak a very clear language of a big story, which only gives sense to this, which allows you to understand why this event occurred, that it's not just some haphazard chance occurrence, but that it fits into a much larger story, a big cosmic battle between forces that are duking out between them the future direction of the world. So it's going to get heavy, and you're going to learn things and see things that may blow your mind. So make sure to watch this video until the end. But before I get there, before I get to decoding those details, I'm first going to talk about the general situation which led a lot of astrologers in the recent times to already assume and see that something might happen, that something of this kind might happen. Now, what I'm talking about is the Mars-Uranus conjunction, which took place very prominently in Donald Trump's chart, and which a lot of astrologers called out. So let's have a look at that, and let's understand the context of this event. And when we open up the chart with the transits, with Donald Trump's transits, we can see clearly here that these days there was a Mars-Uranus conjunction. You see this here on top of his chart on his MC. You see here the Mars-Uranus conjunction, and a lot of astrologers saw this, and a lot of astrologers called this out. Some even went as far as saying that, you know, he could have an accident or an assassination attempt could take place. So it's not unheard of, because the language is very, very clear, right? Mars is the malefic, that's to do with aggression, attacks, fire, you know, any type of violence. And Uranus is the sudden element, the shocking and sudden and surprise element, right? And these two come together. That's the archetypal signature that stands for sudden attacks, right? And it's on his MC. So it's going to be very public. It's going to be seen by everybody in the world, right? It's completely public. And there's also the star Algol here on 25 of Taurus, which is the most malefic star in the heavens, in fixed star astrology, which adds an element of evil and sinister plans to this accidental attack, or to this attack that has, you know, the archetypal energy of a sudden burst, sudden eruption. And all of that is in square to his Mars, which is on his ascendant, which stands for his own physical energy, his own power, right? His own physical being, right? All of that is in square. So it's really like a super clear signature for being attacked, right? It doesn't mean everybody who has this type of transit is going to get shot, right? Because it could be lots of different things that happen. It could be that, you know, you slip publicly, you fall down, have an accident, you know, fall down the stairs, and people see it, everybody sees it. You know, that would be an event that fits the signature. It could be that people verbally attack you suddenly, very unexpectedly, and you have to defend yourself, right? All of those fit the signature, which is why, you know, astrology is a science that gives you the symbolic and archetypal nature of the times, of the events that are going to happen. Now, what are those events exactly going to be? That's case by case going to be different. There's a infinite field of possibilities, which all need to conform, however, to that symbolic structure, right? And in addition to this, he also had the sun transiting on his Saturn. You see this here? So a day when you're going to have karmic challenges, right? Sun transiting Saturn is like the karma comes and hits you, right, on that day and says like, look here, you need to face this, right? So when you look at this, it's not surprising that a lot of astrologers saw this and they said that, yeah, something's going to happen, right? He might have some kind of public accident or some public attack or something like that, right? And that's perfectly true. And if you can read that from the charts, and if you can know that, then you know the basics of astrology. However, there is layers to this. There's layers and levels, and we can get far deeper and far more concrete. We can read the story of what's happening if we go into the deeper layers, which are revealed to us through the fixed stars and the asteroids. So let's do that, and let's have a look at the chart of the moment with some important asteroids. All right, so what you see here now is a chart of Donald Trump, and on the outside, we're seeing the transiting planets as well as some very important asteroids, which add detail to the story, which add a much more deep and rich texture to the narrative. So first thing you can see here is that transiting Pyrrhus, which is from the Greek mythology, was actually a historical story of that gives the name to Pyrrhic victories, right? It's kind of a victory which is a defeat at the same time. And Pyrrhus, or Pyrrhus in Greek, he was a king who attacked and died during the attacks, right? And basically a sort of suicide attempt, right? A kind of an attack in which you die yourself, a kind of a kamikaze attack, right? That's what symbolically it stands for. That's why also when we say, it can stand for a victory which is not a victory, right? Or which is more of a defeat, actually, in reality. And this asteroid, Pyrrhus, it's on his Pluto in the 12th house. So he has a Pluto in the 12th house natally, which is what? Which is having powerful enemies that are secret or hidden. Pluto, powerful, right? Powers, the kind of dark powers. In the 12th house, powerful enemies who are hidden, right? He has very powerful enemies who are acting from behind the scenes, who are hidden. They're not seen, right? They're not stepping out into the daylight. And on this day, we had Pyrrhus here conjunct Pluto exactly, right? So his powerful enemies are having an attack which has a kind of a kamikaze effect, right? And which is a victory that is not a victory, that is more of a defeat, right? So the attack took place, but it was more of it didn't work out as planned, right? And that's written in the chart here. But now, who are those enemies, and why? What else is happening? What else can we see? It goes on, right? It goes on. So who are those enemies, and what's their game? What are they doing? Why are they doing this for? Can we read that as well? Yes, we can. Why? Because the celestial objects, the celestial bodies, in their cosmic dance, they're constellating the parameters of the narrative, of the big narrative, the cosmic narrative that we are all living through, that we are players in, that we co-create together with the cosmos. This is why we can read this. So let's have a look and see what's happening. And we see here that the asteroids Hoover and Brussels, they're exactly here on his sun, on his natal sun and north node, right? And they are opposite. They are opposite. Here, you're going to see this here. Transiting Ate on the galactic center. Here, Ate on the galactic center. Okay? This is an exact opposition. It falls exactly on Donald Trump's sun-moon opposition. What does that mean? Hoover and Brussels. Hoover stands for the Secret Services. Hoover was the founder of the FBI and symbolically stands for the Secret Services of the United States. Brussels stands for the capital of the globalists. Why? Because Brussels is the capital of NATO and the capital of the modern Tower of Babel, which is the EU Parliament. So all the globalists, their globalist organizations, their main organizations are NATO and the EU Parliament. And these are the two organizations which are currently hell-bent on getting into war with Russia, starting World War III. Right? So keep that in mind. Hoover, the Secret Services, and Brussels, the globalists, are in opposition to Ate. What is Ate? Ate is from the Greek mythology and is a goddess, or a daimon rather, of conspiracy. Ate stands for conspiracy. The conspiracy that throws men into abject despondency. Ate stands for conspiracies, and it's with the galactic center. Whatever is with the galactic center attains vast importance. So we see here a vastly important conspiracy of the globalist and secret services, which are directly impacting Donald Trump's personality and essence and mission, which is his sun on North Node. Right? We can see this here in the chart. And what else can we see? On his MC, as we already know, there is the Uranus with Mars. Uranus with Mars, right? That was the accident-prone constellation, the constellation that brings about attacks and accidents. And what else is there? There is also Mars with Mason. Mason Cole stands for Freemasons, as well stands for globalists, basically. And there is Pax and Russia. The asteroids Pax and Russia. Pax is Latin for peace, right? So what we see here, an attack by globalists on peace with Russia. An attack by globalists on peace with Russia. How does that make sense? Well, as you surely know, Donald Trump keeps repeating. He keeps saying, the moment he is elected, he will set an end to this cataclysmic conflict which is brewing right now in Eastern Europe between the West and the East, and which, if not stopped, will lead to World War III. Donald Trump is telling you all the time. He's been saying it over and over again. He's been saying it the moment he's elected. He's going to set an end to this. Is this all just idle talk? Is this idle talk? Have a look at this. Just 2 days ago, Donald Trump met with Viktor Orban. Viktor Orban, the gentleman you can see here standing next to him, who is the only politician in the EU right now, the leader of Hungary, the only politician in Europe who has the sanity and the sense and the good sense to want to prevent an all-out war with Putin and with the East more globally, more generally speaking. Viktor Orban, he just came back himself from a tour where he met Putin, where he met Xi Jinping, and where he talked about parameters for peace, something that none of the other Western leaders, none of the NATO leaders is even willing to do. They're not willing to talk to them. They're literally saying, we're not talking to them, right? They made a peace conference, a so-called peace conference, and didn't invite them, and didn't want, the peace conference didn't have the main fraction, the main party that's involved in the war there. They were not invited. They were not invited. So unlike the warmongers, unlike the globalists, Viktor Orban here, and Viktor Orban, after his meeting with Donald Trump, he said that Donald Trump is going to set an end to this war. And look at this picture that they took. There's the wings behind him. This is not a coincidence. Coincidences don't exist. Donald Trump has a statue of Saint Michael the Archangel in his office. And when you saw how the bullet went by his head, because in that very moment, in the moment before the shots were fired, he turned his head to the side, right? He just had this. If he didn't do that motion, the bullet would have entered the back of the skull and it would have been over. Imagine that scenario where the bullet enters the back of his skull and Donald Trump is taken out. What happens next? In 2 days, there's going to be the Republican convention, and that convention would have crowned Nikki Haley as the president to be, as the candidate. Why? Because all the big globalist donors are behind her. All the neocon globalist donors, they want to see her in place because she will be surefire guarantee for World War III to happen, for NATO and the US to attack Russia before the end of the war, before the end of the year. Before this year is over, there'll be World War III. And this was prevented by that one nut, by that one twist, turn of the head, which saved Donald Trump's life. So how does the story continue? Well, let's look at the charts to see what's coming next. One thing we can say for sure is that this constellation here, right, this historical attempt, this was the best shot they'd get at Donald Trump. What's going to come after this is, as I predicted in an earlier video this year in April sometime, Donald Trump is now going to ride into a wave of popularity, which is going to be completely unheard of. He's going to reach peak popularity, right? Jupiter is going on his sun in the coming months, and Donald Trump will have an absolutely unheard of popularity. He will be more popular than he was and has been ever before, right? And globally, not just with Americans, many of whom are now coming to Trump, who previously would have never, the blacks, large parts of the blacks, the Latinos. A lot of people are coming to Trump who are not typical Republicans in any way. And that's going to continue. But are they going to have another shot? Are his enemies going to have another shot at taking him down? There's one constellation coming up where it looks difficult and it looks likely for something to go down if the opposing forces are actually going to be able to muster that strength. And that's in October. That's mid-October. You see here, mid-October, Mars, transiting Mars is on his Saturn, and transiting Sun is squaring that Saturn, right? So this is another constellation, not as bad as, not as harsh as the one that just took place, but this is another one mid-October where something could go down. And it's possible that the decision is made that he needs to go, right? He needs to go. It's possible that that decision has been made by the globalists who have an interest in war. Because Donald Trump is what stands between us, where we are right now, and the inexorable and inevitable breakout of World War III. We're going to keep monitoring the story. We're going to keep decoding and analyzing and revealing that which others don't tell you. You're going to get it here on this channel. So make sure to follow, subscribe, share, and until the next time, be well.